What if I told you that the most powerless person in any room isn't the one with no ambition, no resources, or even no talent? It's the person who tells everyone their plans. You know the type. Announces every goal, shares every idea, broadcasts every intention before taking action. Society calls them transparent. Sun Tzu called them something else entirely. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why this person guarantees their own failure, while people who move in silence accumulate power that talkers never access. Or maybe you're that person wondering why your announced plans never materialize. But first, let me show you exactly what I mean. You're at a gathering and two people have big ambitions. First, there's Jake, excitedly telling everyone about his business idea, his fitness goals, his plans to change his life. Classic oversharer. Then there's Maria, who listens more than she speaks, keeps her cards close, and 6 months later has actually built what Jake is still talking about building. Who actually achieved something? Hold that thought, because what I'm about to tell you will flip everything you believe about sharing and success. Jake's announcement gave him a dopamine hit that replaced the need for action. Maria's silence created pressure that could only be released through execution. Jake invited criticism, doubt, and energy drain before he started. Maria protected her vision until it was undeniable reality. So why does everyone think sharing plans is being authentic when it actually kills the plans? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You celebrate Jake because his sharing makes you feel included, but that inclusion is exactly what destroys his power to execute. Sun Tzu spent his life studying strategy. And what he discovered was this: the element of surprise is your greatest advantage, and you sacrifice it every time you reveal your plans. Because they prove that everything we've been taught about transparency and sharing is actually a way to drain your power before you've built anything. But here's what Sun Tzu knew that nobody talks about. The person who never reveals their plans isn't being secretive. They're protecting the most valuable thing they have, the power of mystery. While everyone else is announcing intentions that never materialize, they're building in silence. And that silence, that's exactly what separates people who actually achieve from people who just talk about achieving. But to understand why, we need to dig into ancient wisdom about why revelation destroys power. Sun Tzu wrote, "All warfare is based on deception. Hence, when we are able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive." But what happens when you're constantly revealing your ability and activity? If you've ever announced a plan that died before starting, this video is for you. Like, subscribe, and let's harness the power of silence. Leave a comment about the last plan you kept secret that actually succeeded versus one you announced that failed. That's the person who never reveals their plans. They're a walking mystery that accumulates power, has ambitions without announcements, goals without broadcasts, moves without telegraphing, builds in silence until results speak, keeps intentions private until they're irreversible, operates while others speculate. And this makes others uncomfortable, because if success doesn't require sharing your journey, if power doesn't demand transparency about your plans, if achievement doesn't need you to announce your intentions, then what does that say about all the talking you've been doing instead of building? But here's where it gets really interesting. Sun Tzu discovered something that explains why revealed plans almost never succeed while hidden plans often do. And it has everything to do with the nature of power and opposition. Remember that feeling when someone announces a big plan and you immediately think of reasons it won't work? Sun Tzu had a name for it. And once you understand what it is, you'll never share your plans again. Quick question. When was the last time you kept a plan completely secret and followed through versus announced it publicly and watched it die? Not kept it secret because you were ashamed, not announced it for accountability, but understood strategically that revelation would kill the plan before execution could protect it. The pattern is obvious once you see it. Sun Tzu discovered that revealing plans isn't about transparency. It's about unconsciously seeking validation that replaces the need for achievement. He called this the principle of deception in warfare. What works in battle works in life. Your power lies in what others don't know. And in our culture, the biggest trap is believing that sharing plans helps them succeed when it actually guarantees their failure. But here's what Sun Tzu knew. We announce our plans seeking validation. We share our goals seeking encouragement. We broadcast our intentions seeking approval before we've earned it through results. Not because it helps us succeed, but because we're addicted to the feeling of being seen as ambitious without doing the hard work of becoming accomplished. Think about your last big announcement. Did you work harder after sharing? Or did the attention and validation satisfy something that made the actual work feel less urgent? The person who never reveals their plans doesn't get that validation hit. They have no choice but to build, because silence creates internal pressure that only results can release. And somehow, this is the part that breaks people's brains. They achieve at much higher rates because they protected their power instead of dissipating it through revelation. Sun Tzu wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." What makes you uncomfortable about people who don't share is that they've subdued the enemies of execution, criticism, doubt, energy drain, without fighting them. They simply never invited those enemies by revealing their plans. But what if you're not being authentic by sharing? What if the problem is your need for validation is killing your ability to execute? Here's what the personal development gurus don't want you to know. Announcing plans destroys them more effectively than any external obstacle. Everything you've been taught about accountability through sharing is backwards. Sun Tzu wrote, "Opportunities multiply as they are seized, but opportunities die when they're announced." The strategically silent understand something most never access. Every person you tell is a potential point of resistance. While you're sharing for support, you're actually creating obstacles. While you're seeking encouragement, you're inviting doubt. While you're announcing intentions, you're spending energy that should go to execution. This is why your announced plans fail. You've already received the reward, attention and validation, so your brain has less motivation to do the actual work. Remember Jake from The Gathering? While Maria was quietly building, Jake was getting high on talking about building. His announcements gave him dopamine hits that made the hard work of actual building less appealing. His transparency was actually self-sabotage disguised as authenticity. Sun Tzu called this knowing when to be formless. When your plans are formless, unknown to others, they can't be opposed, criticized, or energetically drained. But here's the really crazy part. Silence around plans feels lonely and inauthentic. It feels like you're hiding. It feels wrong to not share your excitement. And that's exactly the social conditioning designed to keep you announcing plans that will never manifest, keep you seeking validation that replaces achievement, keep you transparent about intentions in ways that guarantee their failure. Sun Tzu believed that he who knows when he can fight and when he cannot will be victorious. The person who never reveals their plans knows when to fight, in execution, and when not to fight, in defending plans that aren't yet real. And that knowledge gives them access to power that talkers will never have. Now we get to the real reason society pressures you to share your plans, and it's not what you think. This isn't about authenticity. This is about control. Sun Tzu wrote, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." But society wants you to reveal yourself while never questioning who benefits from your transparency. Think about it. Our entire social media culture depends on one thing: people announcing plans they'll never complete. You share your goals for engagement. You announce your intentions for likes. You broadcast your dreams for validation. The person who never reveals their plans looks at this system and asks one simple question: why would I give away my competitive advantage for temporary validation? And nobody has a good answer. They have power through mystery, progress through silence, achievement through stealth. This makes them unpredictable. Unpredictable people are dangerous to a culture built on everyone announcing everything. But here's the deeper fear that keeps announcement culture alive. What if everyone stopped sharing and started building? What if people protected their plans until results spoke? What if silence became the mark of serious people while announcement became the mark of dreamers? If that happens, social media collapses. The validation economy crashes. Everyone would have to judge people by results instead of by intentions. They've been creating a culture where announcing plans provides validation that makes achieving them optional. And silent builders prove that announcement is not only unnecessary, but actively harmful to execution. The person who never reveals their plans represents proof that there's another way. A way that doesn't require broadcasting every intention or seeking approval before achieving. Sun Tzu observed, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." The person who never reveals their plans is dark and impenetrable, and what they're building will fall like a thunderbolt when it's ready. But here's where this gets personal. Because Sun Tzu himself exemplified what happens when someone understands the strategic power of silence and mystery. Sun Tzu was a military strategist who understood that revelation equals defeat, and his teachings prove this. His entire philosophy centers on deception, surprise, and the power of the unknown. Generals who announced their strategies lost battles. Armies that revealed their movements were defeated. Leaders who telegraphed their intentions faced prepared opposition. Sun Tzu documented countless examples of silence leading to victory, mystery creating advantage, concealment enabling success. Sound familiar? That's exactly the pattern between people who achieve and people who just talk about achieving. But here's what Sun Tzu knew from studying warfare. He had identified something timeless, that the unknown is more powerful than the known. That mystery creates space for movement. That silence protects power until it's ready to be used. And from that understanding came wisdom that has guided strategists for millennia. The art of war, the principle of deception, the power of formlessness, the advantage of mystery. All of these concepts shape how strategic people operate today. They all emerged from understanding that revelation is weakness and concealment is strength. This is the pattern throughout history's most successful people. They appeared mysterious because they didn't announce everything. Steve Jobs revealed products only when ready. Powerful leaders throughout time operated in strategic silence. The most successful entrepreneurs built in stealth mode. But transparency culture calls this being secretive because people who reveal everything need everyone else to reveal too. The person who never reveals their plans today is following ancient strategic wisdom. And just like Sun Tzu taught, they're not trying to be authentic through transparency. They're trying to succeed through strategic concealment. And that silence looks inauthentic to people addicted to announcing plans they'll never complete. Here's what Sun Tzu knew that our culture denies. Revealed plans face opposition while concealed plans face only execution challenges. The person who announces everything isn't being real. They're being strategically foolish. But maybe you're starting to recognize yourself in this description. Maybe you've been announcing plans that never materialize. Sun Tzu wrote, "The wise warrior avoids the battle." But avoiding the battle of defending announced plans requires recognizing these signs. Let me show you these signs. If you recognize them, understanding this will transform your relationship with sharing. First sign, you feel depleted after announcing plans rather than energized. Traditional thinking says sharing creates accountability and energy. You share a plan and feel the opposite. Drained, exposed, less motivated. Every announcement makes the actual work feel less urgent. That's not you lacking follow-through. That's your brain having already received the reward. Second sign, people immediately offer criticism and doubt when you share. You announce something exciting and people list reasons it won't work. Their doubt seeps into your mind. Their criticism drains your energy. You spend time defending your plan instead of building it. Sound familiar? That's not you choosing unsupportive people. That's the inevitable result of revealing plans before they're protected by results. Third sign, your best achievements came from plans you kept secret. You look back and realize the things you actually accomplished were things you didn't talk about. Every success emerged from silence. Every failure was preceded by announcement. The pattern is undeniable once you see it. Fourth sign, you've noticed successful people don't announce their plans. The people actually achieving don't post about what they're going to do. They work in silence and announce only what's already done. Meanwhile, people who announce constantly achieve nothing. You're seeing the pattern, but still announcing anyway. Fifth sign, you feel pressure to update people on plans you've shared. Once you announce, you've created social obligation to report progress. Now you're managing others' expectations instead of executing. The cognitive load of announced plans includes defending, explaining, and updating. Unrevealed plans only require execution. Sixth sign, The validation from announcing feels better than the work itself. You get a high from the attention that makes the actual work feel boring by comparison. Your brain got its reward from announcement, so why would it motivate you to do hard work for the same reward? Seventh sign, you've started announcing smaller or keeping plans vague to avoid failure. You're aware your announced plans fail, so you've adapted by announcing less ambitious goals or being vague. But the real solution isn't announcing smaller, it's not announcing at all. You've been taught these are signs you need more accountability through sharing. You've been told that successful people share their journey. Sun Tzu would tell you, you've been taught strategic foolishness. When you stop announcing and start building in silence, you gain access to real power. Not the fake power of being seen as ambitious, but actual power that comes from achieved results no one saw coming. This is why silent people accomplish disproportionate things. When you're not spending energy announcing, defending, and updating, you have full capacity for building. This is why their success seems to come from nowhere. When you build in silence, results appear like thunderbolts to people who are watching elsewhere. But accepting this truth, that revelation destroys power and silence protects it. That's the hardest part. Now comes the practical question. How do you protect your plans in a culture that demands transparency? Sun Tzu believed that all men can see the tactics whereby I conquer, but what none can see is the strategy out of which victory is evolved. But once you understand that announcing kills plans, you need a framework for strategic silence. First, give yourself permission to say nothing. When someone asks about your plans, "I'm working on something," is a complete answer. You don't owe anyone details about what you're building. The strategically silent protect their information like military secrets, because they understand revelation invites opposition. Second, distinguish between accountability and announcement. Accountability is one person you trust checking on your execution. Announcement is broadcasting to everyone for validation. If you need accountability, choose one person who will challenge your execution, not validate your intention. Never confuse public announcement with accountability. Third, develop what Sun Tzu called strategic patience. Build until results speak louder than any announcement could. Move in silence until your movement creates undeniable impact. The strategically silent don't announce beginnings, they reveal completions. But here's the most important part. You have to embrace the loneliness of silent building. Society has trained you to share every step for validation. Strategic people have trained themselves to find satisfaction in the work itself. Someone asks what you're working on, and you feel pressure to share. Don't. Let people wonder. That mystery is your advantage. The discomfort of not sharing is the price of keeping your power intact. Your biggest achievements might require years of silence. Your most important work might need complete secrecy until launch. Your transformation might have to happen without anyone watching. And that's not being inauthentic. That's being strategic. Think about it. Every person who achieved something significant built substantial parts in silence. Sun Tzu himself's real strategies were never fully revealed. Steve Jobs' most revolutionary products were developed in complete secrecy. The most successful entrepreneurs build for years before public launch. But when their undeniable results emerged from silence, everyone understood why the mystery was necessary. Their concealment turned out to be the only way their vision could survive until it was strong enough to withstand opposition. The same pattern happens over and over. The person who announced nothing suddenly reveals achievement that people who announced everything never reached. Because while everyone else was talking about building, they were building. While others were defending announced plans, they were executing concealed plans. While others were managing others' opinions about their intentions, they were creating results that made opinions irrelevant. Here's what nobody tells you about never revealing your plans. Your success will shock people, but the loneliness of silence is real. Let me say it again. Sun Tzu wrote, "Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win." You've been winning in silence first, building before announcing. You've been preparing victory before declaring battle, and that strategic sequence gives you something announcers never have. The element of surprise that multiplies impact, the protection from premature criticism, the full energy directed at execution rather than defense. But your silence won't make you popular during building. It won't fit the transparent personal brand narrative that social media celebrates. Instead, you'll seem mysterious, disconnected, like you're hiding something. People will speculate about what you're doing. Friends will feel excluded from your process. Critics will claim you're not really doing anything. And that's perfect, because their ignorance is your advantage. When you emerge with results, all the silence will reveal itself as strategy. Every time you didn't share was actually you protecting your power. Every moment you felt lonely was actually you investing in impact over validation. Society pressures revelation because silent builders can't be controlled or predicted. They prove that maybe the problem isn't secretive people who won't share. Maybe the problem is a culture that has confused announcement with achievement and transparency with authenticity. If you're someone whose announced plans have died, if you've noticed successful people don't broadcast intentions, if you've been called secretive despite building more than people who share everything, Sun Tzu would recognize you immediately. You're not being inauthentic. You're not hiding. You're not being closed off. You're understanding that revelation destroys the power of mystery, and that strategic silence is the mark of serious people, while constant announcement is the mark of dreamers who never deliver. The question isn't whether you should be more transparent. The question is whether you'll have the courage to build in silence while everyone demands you announce your plans. Because Sun Tzu was right about strategy. Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is keep your mouth shut and let your results do the talking, even when the world calls that being secretive. The person who never reveals their plans isn't society's closed book. They're proof that real power comes from mystery, not transparency. And that's exactly why announcers fear them. If this video made you understand your failed announced plans differently, or if you recognize yourself as someone who's built more in silence than others build while announcing, let me know in the comments. What succeeded because you kept it secret versus what failed because you announced it. And if you want more content about the strategic power of silence and mystery, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we're just getting started with ancient wisdom that announcement culture doesn't want you to hear.